I'll let you make the case, if indeed there's one to make, that what in your estimation is the current state of the country and by extension its culture?
Well, the idea that there has been progress is not entirely false. When you talk about when I was born, for example, my life expectancy was 66 years, and now the life expectancy is 80 male at birth. So that is progress, and no one would wish to go back to the telephone system of old, where to telephone more than 30 miles away was a kind of effort of Hercules. So there has been undoubted technical progress, but technical progress is not the same as moral progress, although there has been some moral progress as well. However, there is undoubtedly a feeling, and I don't think it's an unreasonable feeling, that there's a kind of deterioration as well. I was recently writing an essay, and I found something that was very striking. In a book I was reading about juvenile delinquents, I read that in 1938 in this country, there were 8,750 prisoners. And if you take, now we have about 10 times as many. If you take the increase in population, we have perhaps 6 times as many prisoners as we did. But it's not just that. For each prisoner, there are now 6 times more indictable crimes than there were in 1938. In other words, if you just put this together, you've got 36 times as many crimes now as in 1938. Well, of course, you can't just extrapolate quite like that. But nevertheless, there is no doubt that a country that was almost as crime-free as any large society ever is or ever will be, we have gone to an extremely high rate of crime. And that seems to me a very serious indictment of our society. And we can talk about why that should have occurred. But I don't think you could just say that because we have more indoor lavatories and everyone has a color television, that this necessarily means that we have made progress in all fields.
Well, you teed me up for the next question. So what are the key influences that have led to both the increase in crime and, as you see it, the migration, I suppose, of culture at large?
Well, I suppose it must really stem from the spread of certain ideas, and those ideas come from intellectuals and the academy, and they have so undermined our society that people like the police no longer have any idea what they're supposed to be doing. In 1938, a policeman would have known what he was supposed to be doing. If you were a little boy and you were behaving badly, he'd pull you by the ear and say, here, stop that. And if he did that now, of course, he would be accused of the most abominable violence. But they really, the police, for example, do not know what they're supposed to be doing. And of course, bureaucrats prefer doing things which involve a lot of desk work and so on, and are not at all dangerous. So, of course, supervising COVID was very pleasant for them as against trying to catch burglars, which is hazardous and rather difficult. So they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Teachers don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Nobody knows what he is supposed to be doing. And that comes from a kind of skepticism, which has been spread, I think, by the extension of universities. And of course, is a bureaucratic opportunity for people. Once you educate people, you have to employ them. So, because they're very dangerous if you don't employ them. And incidentally, I first thought about this in Central America, oddly enough, when I was in Guatemala. I was writing a book about Guatemala and the civil war in Guatemala, and I came to the conclusion that the violence and the violent revolutionary movements, they were not spontaneous movements of the peasantry. They were of university-educated types who were disappointed, I think, by the fact that university no longer implied joining an elite because there were too many people at universities. And something similar has, not exactly the same, but something similar has happened in Britain, I think.
Is that a common theme about the overproduction, I suppose, of cultural elites, that it can lead to kind of disappointment that the entitlement hasn't been achieved? Because if I'm thinking correctly, and you can certainly put me right on this if I'm not. Is that not also similar to the rise of the Nazi movement in Germany, that it was there's a groundswell of support from the disaffected youth and the students of the day? Is that right? Is this something that we're seeing as a theme?
Well, I suppose there's a vague analogy, but I would put it more with I would say the analogy with Latin America is actually stronger, and also with Russia of the 19th century. You can see the intelligentsia produced the catastrophe that Russia is even now not able to overcome. So, so obviously, it's just this isn't a perfect explanation or anything like that. And to some extent, you're better able to say than I, since you appear to be younger than I, and so you would know more people in the age group I'm talking about than I. But it does seem a reasonable partial explanation.